So let's talk about an overview on how we're going to be working to ensure that we can pull off this project in the short amount of time we have. This is a level I've built, I've done everything, I've modeled it, textured it, built it in Unreal. Now I've done this over a period of time. But the way I've done this is the important part. It is not what you think it is. It's not this gigantic thing that I had to model all of it to get to this point. It's actually broken down in very simple elements that were very easy to create and then simply repurposed over and over and over again. And then with some funky tricks in Unreal Engine using everything from materials and whatnot, I've been able to replicate parts and pieces of this easily and quickly so that I can build out what appears to be a much larger level from very, very simple objects. Um, Ignore as I go through it the folder structures and stuff. This is not what you're doing in your project now. This project's from a couple of years ago, so it's a little bit different. Um, So let's just start with, the ground, for instance. So you can see that my ground is actually made of these individual hex pieces. It's this sort of just chunk of ground. And if I just drag out another one, you'll see I have this piece of ground here available to me. Um, you'll also notice that each one of them has what appears to be a unique sort of texture on them, although it's not unique. It's actually flowing lava. I get that for free when I put the material on it. I've got, three different materials kind of going: flowing lava, dirt, and stone areas. But that's all customizable inside of Unreal Engine, and I can blend textures together. Now, note, I never textured this in how you think it is. In fact, when you watch this move, you can actually see it moving through its texture. And this is the same. I don't know if you guys have worked with triplaners in Max yet, but this is essentially the same kind of idea. It's called a world align texture. I've linked some video on how to make those and whatnot. But what's amazing about this is this is the exact same texture on all of them, even though they look all different. I didn't have to do it the way you've been doing things so far. This piece of geometry is really, really simple. Let's just go in and find this. So with this selected, you see it's called ground hex over here. I can step over to the static mesh. That's the mesh that I imported. I'm going to hit the browse to button, and it'll take me to the assets. So there's the asset. It's one of my stones. I've got all these different stones in here I've made and dirt piles and stuff. I'm just going to double click on that and open it. And there is my ground hex that we can see. Just make that a little brighter. So there you go. There it is there. It's exceptionally simple. And the wireframe is also exceptionally simple. So it's a very low res mesh. Ignore this one out here. This is the sort of sphere around the world. You can see the mesh. It's very simple. There's nothing exciting about it. I actually did it all procedurally in Max, so I didn't sit there and sculpt it in ZBrush or anything else. I made it in a very simple way. There's the initial one that I drop into the scene, and then I can customize them at will. So what's really neat is you can go in and do all kinds of crazy things with this. So I can actually paint in where I want lava, for instance. I can, I'll just flip this back to the other way around. So there it is, basically all black. Oh, I think that's not what I wanted to do. I think one of these channels, I've done kind of something odd here. I remember in this one. And I might have to fill that. There you go. So I can go in and actually paint dirt wherever I want, and you can see they're all different for this reason. So this is down and dirty fast. I can start to customize these ground pieces. Now this is one way that you can do ground. It's one solution. We could also model it as a piece. We could use the landscape possibly, but we want to try and keep it down to one or two ways at best. So we'll probably be using geometry, reusable geometry and stuff. And again, so we're going to go over to things like rocks. Same rock over and over and over again. I've got a couple of variations of it, but that rock is the same as these rocks over here. This is just a pile of rocks making this one larger mound of rock. These are doing the same thing as well. They've got these textures on them that slide as the texture moves. So again, you'll say, hey, what's going on there? Well, it's some trickery that you're going to learn as we go along. So all of the rocks are basically the same rocks. All of the ground pieces are the same ground piece. There is no difference in those whatsoever. This bridge, same thing. It's been made out of boards. And another video, I show you importing a board, but it's basically one piece of wood. It's the board used over and over again, made thinner, thicker, wherever it needed to be. One post, square post, and one piece of steel. And it is just replicated over and over again. So if you can imagine modeling this and take a look at the complexity of one of these in its wireframe, it's the world's simplest model going. It is deadly simple, okay? So it's an exceptionally simple model. It's got a material on it, and I can do the same thing with these materials as I can do the ground. I can paint in where I want material changes because of the way I build my materials. So you can see this building is scintillating slowly and on fire. That's because I have sort of layers of material. Some of it's the underlying material. Other parts of it are the scintillating burnt textures, and I can use the vertex paint tool and paint in where I want fire or not. So this house is made out of really, I think, just three distinct pieces. I have a single roof piece, I have a post, and I have a flat board. Those are the same posts and same flat boards that I built the bridge from and the water tower from. They all have the same materials on them, so I can do anything I want with them. It's also the same thing I built the bridge from and this bridge from. And all of those bits of wood there, it's also the same for that bridge, except I added some metal pieces. So once again, I've literally made three little tiny, really simple elements and been able to build bigger elements from those, which is the way I want you working. This is the optimal way. It's super fast. All these piles of dirt are a single dirt pile, and I just keep using that single dirt pile over and over. And whenever I need to jam it in somewhere to fill something, made a ramp to step up onto, it's the same dirt pile with the same texture over and over again. Same thing with the road. It's a single piece of road. I'm using vertex colors to be able to change how it looks. I didn't have to build the whole road. I literally made a single piece of a road and a bridge. And again, I can show you how I've done all this. And it's being swept along a spline and then customized with vertex colors. So I can make it very quickly. Same thing with the castle here. It's one brick. I've got a broken brick and I have an unbroken brick. To make the unbroken brick, I simply took the brick that I'd already finished and broke a chunk out of the side of it. Simple as that. It was completely procedurally made in 3ds Max. I didn't do any modeling on it with pulling vertices or anything. I just straight up just used bend modifiers and noise modifiers on a box. That's it. That's all that was done there. Same thing with these rocks and any other rocks and stuff that you see in the scene. So what I've done is I've found down and dirty, fast ways of building what I want to build without having to try and customize and build everything. I've also done that for all the textures as well. So all the textures have got the same sort of premise to them. I haven't anywhere in here painted textures directly on an object specific to that object. They're all completely reusable textures. Here's a breakdown of all the textures that I'm currently using in the scene. For instance, all the cracked dirt textures are this, and look how simple that is. I painted this in Krita because it has a really good solution for creating tileable textures, meaning it tiles that line there on the side, comes back in over here. This goes out, comes back in here. So it tiles seamlessly without seeing any seams in the tiling of it whatsoever. So I use Krita for that. Same thing with my stones. Look how simple that is. It's a quick Photoshop painting, or it's again Krita painting. You can see where I used a big square brush on the ground. It was so simple to do. My dirt, it's just a big pattern brush with a variant in a brown, reddish brown color. And I just filled the palette again with the tiling turned on. Photoshop's not very good at doing tiled textures. It doesn't handle it very well. You could also do that in things like Substance, I think, has tools for that, but don't start texturing objects. It's just painting a texture. I'm not making textures on objects. I'm making textures that are going to be reusable. There's a difference to that. My tiled lava, same thing. All kinds of different tiled maps that all just tiled. I've got moss and all sorts of other things, rust and everything. Then further down, I've got some untileable, ones that don't tile, that are called trim sheets. And these trim sheets are look like this. And the same thing in here. I have created these actually in Sketchbook Pro, sitting on the couch drinking a beer and painting away. I did not texture a piece of wood in 3D. I painted a wood texture that I would be using. So I've painted these and then unwrapped the geometry onto the texture maps, as opposed to the other way around that you're doing it. And I'll go do a video on how this is done and how to go about doing it. But you need to start considering these cheats and these workarounds to make your life faster and easier. How do I do things without and make them look good without having to do them to the degree that you guys have so far used to doing them. This has allowed me to be able to add new objects to the scene and texture them quickly without even having to paint new textures, because I have these tileable textures that I can throw onto things. All of the metal textures are all coming from the same metal sheets. I've got this paint tile that's just kind of streaks, took me 2 seconds to make, tileable again. I've got some cracked paint I can throw on things, and a couple others that I have in here somewhere. I'm trying to find them. I don't know where they are. Oh, there it is. Metal trim sheet that I can pick up bits and pieces of metal off of this where I need them with my geometry. So I painted this again in Sketchbook Pro. I kind of knew I needed some bits and pieces of metal, and I painted it, and then I just pick up the pieces I need on my geometry. Means I don't have to do any major texturing, just unwrap the flat pieces to where I need them, and I'm done. So we're going to try and learn to work this way so that we can build fast and iterate quickly and add on to things. Idea being here too is we can easily update everything as we go. Now, the materials themselves are going to look really complex overall as we start getting into it. So here's an actual road material that's on the road, and you're going to panic when you see it, but it's not so bad once we start getting into it and understand what's going on. I've got tutorials on how to do these and how to start breaking these sorts of things down on my website as well. And so we're going to be, working on these things. There's the simple burning wood material. I think this is the simplified version. Yeah, this is the very simplified version of what I have going. But we're going to get into how these things are done. So I need you to start thinking about, how am I going to use reuse? I'm not going to build anything that's going to be a one-off. Everything I build right now is going to be reusable and reusable over and over again to be able to build multiple things out of. So as you're doing your designs, you have to look at it and consider, how am I going to use existing content to build those new items? Or can I build those new items out of one thing or two things and build something that's much bigger out of that? And as we move forward, you're going to see how this all comes together. And again, this level is looking quite nice, and it's really simple the way it was done.